Welcome to episode 24 of a Jez and Friends podcast. Today's special guest of a podcast is Simon. How's it going, mate?
Going very well, Jerry. Thanks for having me. I feel honoured to be on your podcast.
No worries, mate. We're going to be covering many topics, including working at the Western Bulldogs Foundation. That's how we met, the leadership programs they offer. We're going to talk about sports because we both love sports and some funny stories. Now let's get started. So obviously this week exams have been the main focus for me. Talk us through. Do you remember doing exams back in your days? What was that like?
It's a long time ago that I did exams, Jerry, but I'll be pretty upfront and say that I wasn't the best school student. I really struggled to fit into kind of the mainstream school system, and even though I got like reasonably good marks in the end, I didn't really enjoy school. And then I think I went to uni and I didn't really pick the uni subjects that I wanted to do. And I kind of probably wasn't a very big success in uni. I probably dropped out of about 3 courses early on in my uni days. And a lot of that, thinking about exams, a lot of that was I probably got negative thoughts because I wasn't prepared and I wasn't mature enough to know that I wasn't enjoying what I wanted to do. And so what I'd do is I'd go into exams and it would just make me really anxious, and then I wouldn't do very well, and it would make me upset. And it took me a long time to realize I had to be honest with myself and really admit that, where I wanted to go. And it kind of helped me understand who I was better. So kind of a bit of a lesson out of failure, and also recognizing what your life choices are and picking things that you're into rather than what things you think you're supposed to do.
Yeah, fair enough. And what was the curriculum like back in the day? So, like, did you go to school in Victoria and stuff, or?
Yeah. I was in the early days of the VCE. I think the VCE
Oh, yeah.
started probably about 3 or 4 years before I did year 12.
Yeah.
And what we had to do, I suppose the only thing that we had to do was English. I'm pretty sure that's still the
Yeah,
same.
it's still the same.
Yeah, luckily I went to a pretty good school. I went to Melbourne High School. So they had a really strong education, also kind of helped me with playing sport. I always loved playing footy, and at that stage they were a pretty good footy school. They were known for their footy, and it was a really good curriculum. I actually look back on it, and particularly subjects like English I really enjoyed, and fondly look back at those humanities side. I think it was maybe the maths and sciences that I struggled at, Jerry.
Yeah, similar, I guess. I'm not doing any sciences next year because, they're a bit not my niche. So
Yeah, and again, that goes to that idea of like picking what your strong points are as well. I think it's really important.
Yeah, it's great. So this is a hypothetical question which changes every week. So, if you could meet one person that you haven't met, who would it be? Could be anyone.
Are they living or
Living,
dead
dead,
or?
famous, whatever, mate.
This is a tough question. Let me have a think. Well, you know what? I'm really into music, and I kind of think about probably some of the musicians that are the most innovative and the ones that are kind of that have changed the world, and that I'm really into and that I always go back to. And I'd have to say David Bowie would probably be someone that I'd be really interested in, because not only like as I got older, I got really more and more into his music, but probably my all-time favorite childhood film is Labyrinth, when he plays the Goblin King. And I love that movie. And then when I got older, I realized how amazing a musician he was, not just for being in Labyrinth. And then also just a really interesting character. Did a lot of good things for the world without kind of always asking to be the center of attention. And he also, I'd love to meet anyone that kind of left a lasting mark on the world, and music's very important to me. So no one changed music more than David Bowie.
Yeah, that's great, mate. And speaking of music, so what do you listen to? Like, you spoke about David Bowie, and are there any other artists you listen to or have a favorite song in particular?
Jerry, I am very passionate about music, and I always say that I can never pick a favorite artist. I was really lucky to grow up with parents that had an awesome record collection. So I grew up listening to a lot of, Beatles, Stones, Bowie, all the way to kind of a little bit more random ones, like Frank Zappa, if you want to check out some random sort of 60s music. And that kind of gave me a really good understanding of like different sorts of music. And from when I was about 16, 17, I went to a lot of gigs and festivals and everything like that. And the more you expose yourself to different sorts of music, the more different sorts of musics you like. So this year, actually, something that I did in COVID-19 as my way of kind of staying connected with friends is I used to do a weekly Spotify playlist at the end of every week. I'd send it at 5 o'clock on a Friday to just wish everyone the end of a good week and put a bit of a message in the WhatsApp message that I would send them and the text message that I'd send them. And the music's kind of the best of new and the best of old. I think if you've got me to kind of name my favorite genre of music,
Yeah.
I like something with a bit of soul and funk in it, Jerry. So, the old Motown stuff I'm a big fan of. Also, just anything that's got a really good beat. That's what I like.
Okay.
So if that's rock, I love it. If it's funk, I love it. If it's electronic, I love it. So hip hop, all of it. And when we're allowed to go see live music again, I can't wait because that's probably something that I've missed most.
Yeah, fair enough, mate. Speaking of 90s music, recently I've been a big fan of Oasis and their music, such as like Wonderwall, Don't Look Back in Anger, and all that. I'm sure you grew up listening to like a bit of Oasis as well.
Unfortunately, in the war, do you know what the Britpop wars were, Jerry?
Not really. Give us a bit of an insight,
Well,
mate.
Britpop, so that was like the music genre that Oasis were part of. That was in the mid 90s, and the kind of the biggest bands in the Britpop era were Oasis, Blur, and Pulp. And
Oh, right.
unfortunately, if I listed my order of the favorite bands of those three, I'd probably go Blur, Pulp, and Oasis. So, I admit Oasis are an awesome band. They did some massive hits, but I wasn't the biggest fan. I like Blur, so of the
Oh,
same
yeah.
era, listen to Blur. And the lead singer of Blur, Damon Albarn, he's the guy that's behind Gorillaz. And so when you look at kind of his longevity in music, he's gone from mid 90s doing Britpop through to still releasing awesome music as Gorillaz now. So that's pretty cool. But if you want to watch a good Oasis doco, I watched one a couple of weeks ago called Supersonic, and it shows how crazy the Gallagher brothers are. So if you can look up Supersonic, it's a good watch.
Yeah, I think I've seen it already. It was on maybe
Yeah.
Stan or something. Yeah.
Yeah, it was.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's great. So quickly tell the viewers how we know each other today. Obviously, the Western Bulldogs Foundation and the leadership programs.
Yeah, so I work for the Western Bulldogs Community Foundation. So we're the community services arm of the Western Bulldogs Football Club. And we deliver a whole lot of programs across the west of Melbourne and west of Victoria to culturally diverse people, older people that are having mental health issues or health related problems. We also run a lot of youth programs. And so I met you through the Youth Leadership Project in the Inner West, which was a 10-session program. Unfortunately, this year we delivered it online, like we're meeting today again, Jerry. But
Yep.
one day we'll meet face to face and properly and be able to kind of celebrate the effort that you and the people that you did the course with went through this year. I think there were 27 young people from the Inner West that graduated from the program, and some awesome social impact projects. So Jerry and a couple of other girls in the program did an awesome fundraising and Instagram site called Men Talking or Mental King, which raised awareness of men talking about mental health. And that kind of shows the leaders that we were working with in the community. So, I'm really lucky to be in the job that I'm in. I love football and I love working in the community. And I think this is a bit of a combination of the two.
Yeah, that's great, mate. It's good meeting you, and hopefully we can do that in person sometime next year, early next year, I'd say.
Yeah, absolutely.
And speaking about the program, we have a question from Cal. You know Cal, bit of a funny guy. So he basically said, "Will you ever consider going for North Melbourne?"
I think Cal knows this, and I think Cal knows that I'm definitely not jumping on the North Melbourne bandwagon, but I wish them the best. They're a great club. They do a lot of good work in the community. I know that you live near North Melbourne, Jerry, and they
Yeah.
do awesome stuff. And I really like clubs that do a lot of work in the community. And I think that sort of spirit and culture will end up coming on the field. And they have been a proud club, and they'll get back up the top. They just need to get through a few hard years, like all football clubs do.
Yeah, hopefully we can lift the premiership like what the Dogs did in 2016.
Yep.
I'll be very happy if that happens. But yeah, moving on. So obviously restrictions have eased. We're now having a lot of fun, I guess. Have there been any cool activities you've been doing?
Since the end of lockdown,
Yeah.
I actually just moved houses. So I suppose the best activities that I've been doing is kind of discovering the new area that I live in. So I just moved to Preston, which is kind of the northern suburbs. And we were really lucky that we moved just as the lockdown was ending. So it just means that we can go check out restaurants, the markets at the end of the Preston markets at the end of our street, and just check out those sorts of things without having to worry too much about restrictions and things not being open. So I suppose the coolest activities I'm doing is just kind of discovering the new area that I live in. I've been really enjoying that.
Yeah, that's great, mate. So the quote of a podcast is push yourself because no one else is going to do it for you. Is there a quote or something you live by, Simon?
I think there's lots of quotes. I think I say them all the time, and it's hard to kind of pick one to live by. I'd probably say, you know, it sounds a bit simple, but treat people well and you get treated well. I'm a believer in good karma. So
Yeah.
if you do good things and treat people well, then generally you get some good breaks in life. And so I generally like to treat everyone equally and give people the best opportunity they can and be a good person. And then generally life works out pretty well. So I suppose that's a long quote, but it's probably something that I live by.
Yeah, it's a really unique quote, and I'd say I live similarly. Like treat people the way you want to be treated, and yeah, good things will come. I'd say for sure. Yeah. So, mate, what's the last TV show or movie you've watched?
I mean, in lockdown, Jerry, I've watched thousands. We watched a doco last night on ABC called Wayne, which is the doco of the first ever Australian MotoGP champion. It's on ABC, which was pretty cool. So that was a good doco we watched. I've also my two favourite shows. I'll say my favourite shows of this year. Are both probably on Stan. One is called The Great, which is the story of Catherine the Great, who was a Russian queen. It's pretty funny and a really good show. Another one's called Rami, which is about an Arabic guy living in New Jersey. It's a bit of a 20-minute comedy, but really shows diversity on the screen and people with disability, people from culturally diverse backgrounds, but a lot of heart and a lot of humour. So they're probably my favourite shows. I like shows that got a bit of humour to them, but are also send a good message.
Yeah, it's great, mate. Because
I'll
some
tell you,
shows. Yeah.
I actually write a list of all the movies I watch, Jerry,
Oh, really?
and so I do a little review on them because other than music and sport, movies is another good thing that I'm really passionate about. But yeah, probably the best movie that I watched this year is Shoplifters, which is a Japanese movie. It's a really good movie. So that's probably the best movie I've watched this year.
Yeah, I might have to give that a watch. And yeah, because you're the kind of movie man or TV. Yeah, like you write reviews, all that. So yeah, might
Let me
have to
know.
give
Let
that.
me know what you think of it. Let me know what you think of it.
Yeah, for sure, mate. Um, so do you have any funny stories either from like the leadership programs you've run or any fun ones you remember from your childhood or something?
Oh, I've got lots of stories, Jerry. I just don't know how many of them I can share with you. But I suppose a good one this year has just been like the challenges of Zoom. The constant dropping out, the things you see in people's backgrounds, all pretty crazy stuff. So that's been a funny one in all the leadership programs. probably a good story from when I was young. We drove when I was 7 in 1986. We drove across America. We spent 3 months driving from LA to New York and back, and so many funny things happened. And that was back in the days when Crocodile Dundee first came out. So all the Americans you met just thought you were like Crocodile Dundee, and so we just had a lot of funny things happen because America didn't know much about our country. And as a 7-year-old driving in the back of a car, being in the back seat of a car that goes across the country like that, there are a lot of funny stories that happened. It was a really, really funny, fond memories when I was a child.
Yeah, that's great, mate. Because Crocodile Dundee, all I remember about the movie is that like Paul Hogan saying knife bit. I don't know, you know how like the knife.
That's not a knife. This is a knife.
Yeah, that one. Yeah.
Yeah.
Pretty incredible movie. And speaking about like the 80s, 90s, tell us about growing up in the 90s. To be honest, I wish I grew up in the 90s. The culture just seemed pretty cool, like the clothing, the hairstyles, all that. So like, talk us through that.
I think it's coming back.
Yeah, the mullets, all that.
I look around. I think that there's a lot of fashion now that looks like it's set in the 90s. Tell you what, I grew up in the 80s and 90s, and I suppose one thing that I don't feel sorry for young people these days because it brings a lot of good to your life, but these things are also not great for young people. And
True.
When we were younger, you just you had to make plans. You went and did stuff all day. You connected with people in real life, and you were able to go do that. I think that there was, I don't know whether, I don't think it was a safer world. Like I think that safety is the same now as it was back then. I just think people were less afraid of letting young people do what they wanted to do. My mum and dad used to let me and my brother walk around the city when we were 11, 10 years old, and I don't think parents really let young people do that. And I'm not questioning that that's a wrong thing to do. I just think we had maybe a bit more freedom when we were growing up, and maybe that just added to a little bit more fun and excitement that we were able to do. And also, the fact that people aren't recording stuff on their phone meant that you could maybe do things, without getting worried that it might get onto social media and stuff, and doing things just with your mates. So I think it was probably just a little bit more of a, I hate saying this because I sound like my parents, just think it was a bit more of a simple world, like I just don't think that there was as many fears around you in the world as there is today. And like this year sums it all up, that we're kind of, a lot of us are always gripped in a bit of fear.
Yeah, true. That's true. You guys had probably slightly more freedom than I do, I reckon, back in the 90s.
Yeah, potentially. But, things like TV shows and movies and music and all that, it's great. It's as good now as it ever was, like nostalgia is a funny thing, Jerry. Like everyone looks back at past times and thinks things are better. Like I always think, 1965 to 75, that's like the golden era of music. But, that was only because it was done for the first time, whereas things have been repeated a lot. But, there's great stuff that comes out now as well in movies and music. So I just think sometimes we just look back more fondly at older things.
Yeah, great. I remember you telling us this back in the leadership program, but you attended, I don't know how many grand finals, like AFL grand finals, but you've attended a few in person. So talk us through that. I've only been to the 2016 one in person. So
yeah, look, probably wearing this uniform, I shouldn't say this, but before working at the Doggies, I was a Hawthorn supporter. I still am a Hawthorn supporter, but have a very, obviously the Doggies are my equal team now, and very fortunate to follow Hawthorn in my life. Hawthorn have won a lot of premierships, and that's allowed me to go to a lot of grand finals. Probably the best one that I went to, just because I was a bit older, was the 2008 one, because I think no one expected Hawthorn to beat Geelong. It was also a day like today. It was like 32 degrees. We're all wearing shorts, t-shirts, and thongs. It was beautiful. We had this great seats where all sitting with my dad and my brother and all our friends. It was a group of about 15 of us. And Buddy's dad actually was just standing behind us. And obviously
really?
Buddy at that time was the star player. And I just think it was a real surprise. I just don't think anyone expected Hawthorn to beat Geelong. And I think when it's a surprise win, it kind of just adds to the excitement a lot. And that was probably the best. And then obviously, being able to go to 4 grand finals in a row and also watch Hawthorn win 3 in a row, it's pretty special stuff. And I don't take for granted that I was lucky enough to be there. I think a lot of footy supporters, particularly the ones that follow the bigger clubs, take for granted the success. And the fact that I saw that, it doesn't bother me that if Hawthorn's been a few years at the bottom of the ladder. I've been spoiled with success, and I love seeing other teams succeed. It's a good thing about AFL footy is that there's a lot of equalisation policies, and it means that a lot of other teams can have success. And I think, it's one of the best things about AFL footy.
Yeah, 100%. I just wish North can be in a big dance, hopefully soon, so I can witness that in person. But yeah, the time will
I'm sure it will.
come. Yeah, for sure. So basically, here's a true or false question. If you're part of a Western Bulldogs leadership program or programs, do you get cool merch?
True. Hoodie, polo, certificate, drink bottle, journal. You get it all, Jerry. I mean, you should know that. I'm surprised you're not wearing it today.
Oh, yeah, I got the certificate in the background, though, so.
That's good. That's lucky. We like to give all the young people. We know that young people go out of their way to be part of the program. So as well as the great experiences that we give them, it's always nice to give a little bit of merchandise as well. So, what I'd love you to do, Jerry, is share it with your friends so that when we're promoting the programs next year, that we're able to get even more young people involved in the programs.
Yeah, for sure. There's plenty of Bulldog supporters at my school, so I need to get them on board. Next year. So what are your fears, mate? Mine are like snakes, spiders, and being in the water swimming because I can't swim at all. But yeah.
Oh, that's no good. You got to learn how to swim, Jerry.
Yeah, I need it, mate. Holidays maybe.
So good life skill.
Yeah.
I'd probably say some of mine are similar. I have a bit of a fear of spiders. I've gotten much better. I've learned that the worst spiders are black, so I just make sure I stay away from black spiders. And then probably, I can swim, but probably my dad let me watch Jaws when I was a bit young, and it made me scared of sharks. So sometimes when I'm in the ocean and something touches me when I can't touch the bottom, I'm back on the sand like that. So I'd probably say that I do have a bit of a fear of sharks, but I realize both of them are completely irrational, like most fears, except for swimming, because, you can't swim, you'll drown. But all those ones like snakes, spiders, sharks, you're more likely to get seriously hurt doing something really simple like going down in the shops than you are to get bitten by a snake, shark, or spider. So they're probably a little bit irrational.
Yeah, true. I need to learn how to swim though, or I'll be in some trouble.
Yeah, you should. I think you should, Jerry. It's a really good life skill.
Yeah, for sure. So do you have a useful tool that you use that could benefit the listeners? For me, listening to music or podcast before school to kind of pump me up.
Yeah. Look, I'm a big fan of listening to music, podcasts. I also think a really useful tool to pick up is just writing lists, and getting stuff in priority order as well. So, there's something really nice. There you go, Jerry. Something really nice about marking things off the list.
Yeah, 100%.
It gives you a feeling of satisfaction. It also helps you be a little bit more organized. So that's probably something that I would recommend your mates to do.
Yeah, that's really great because I've kind of adapted it in the past year, and I've found myself to be more productive. And when you tick something off, there's this like satisfaction that, like, I don't know, it feels good.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think the more that you can just make it part of your everyday, the more natural it is as well. And there's apps as well. You don't just have to use our old school pen and paper, Jerry. I notice you're using a post-it note, but you can use apps as well. But there is something nice about the pen and just
Yeah, just like the flick off.
marking it off, scratch it off.
Yeah, true. So what's next for you in 2021? Are there any like big goals you want to achieve? Obviously, the new empowerment project. You want to talk about that?
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm really looking forward to the end of these hard COVID restrictions. So I'm looking forward to going back to the office, back to VU Witten Oval, so that you can kind of connect more with colleagues. That's something I'm really looking forward to. But yeah, continuing to build our youth and diversity program. So the one that you mentioned is that for the first time ever, the Bulldogs have brought together a group of young people that we're going to help develop content with. And it's really about empowering the voice of young people. And really excited about that project because it's important to listen to people like you, and you guys give us some really great ideas. So really excited about that project and turning that into a bit of a youth action group. And then there's a few other really exciting projects that we're kicking off, an employment program that hopefully helps culturally diverse people improve their skills of getting jobs in the western suburbs. We're going to start back up our Chord Play program, which works with Western English language schools, helping them connect to local sporting clubs. So some really exciting projects coming up. And then beyond that, just looking forward to maybe going on a bit of a holiday. I don't mind a bit of a holiday, and I suppose as Victorians we haven't been able to get out of the state, so sometime next year I'd love my girlfriend and I to go away somewhere and just kind of switch off for a while, not take the mobile phone, kind of remove yourself from technology and just recharge the batteries a little bit.
Yeah, fair enough. Any holiday destinations you're eyeing off, mate?
Yeah, I think we've got a bit of a plan of doing a bit of the top of Northern Territory and WA. So that's really the opposite end of Australia. So
Yeah.
looking at maybe driving from Darwin to Broome or something like that. And there definitely won't be any phone connection in a lot of those places. So just hitting the road and getting out into nature.
Yeah, Broome's a wonderful spot. I've got a few mates living there, so yeah,
Yeah,
amazing holiday
yeah.
spot.
Sunsets in Broome are supposed to be beautiful.
Oh, like the orange sunset. Oh man, it's amazing. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
So Simon, what motivates you the most and why?
Probably my girlfriend. She's always on to me. Nah, she actually makes me a better person. And I think, if you can find someone in your life that helps motivate you for the right reasons, to help you become a better person and succeed more, that's really important. Also, just my family background, like your family, my parents came from overseas and, came and my grandparents brought them from a harder life. And, I suppose I don't think about it every day, but it motivates me to think, I want to kind of repay my grandparents' faith in coming from a struggling place to come to a better world, and want to try and be as successful as possible in that, but also like stay true to who I am. So, do something good in the community as well.
Yeah, it's great, mate. So tell us about your background really quick. Where are you from?
So my family are from a Jewish background, so they're from a number of countries in Europe. So my grandparents kind of, survived World War II. The terrible things that happened to Jewish people in World War
Yeah.
II, and then came to Australia in the early 50s. And early to mid 50s, my both sets of parents, families settled in Melbourne, and can't thank them enough for picking Melbourne as a city, because such a great city. For all the places in the world you could have ended up. I'm pretty happy that they ended up coming to Melbourne.
Yeah, it's great, mate. So Simon, mate, I've asked you a fair few questions. You can ask me one question far away.
What made you do this podcast, Jerry?
Oh, well, I was inspired by Dylan Buckley. I'm not sure if you've heard of his podcast, Dylan Friends. It's pretty massive. So I just wanted to start my own, like interviewing my friends, people I know, talk about their stories, and yeah, just have fun with it, see where it takes me, and because I want to pursue like a media type thing in the future. So hopefully this can get me in good stead.
Are you doing any other sorts of things when it comes to media and kind of building up those skills?
Oh, well, I'm doing like media next year for year 11, so hopefully that can kind of tie in and help me as well in the long run.
Yeah, yeah, it's great. Good on you, Jerry. I think it's good that you're kind of going out and doing that already at this age. So I think you're well on your way. Well done.
Yeah, cheers, mate. So guys, thanks for tuning into the Jez and Friends podcast. Remember, push yourself because no one else is going to do it for you. And thank you so much for your time, Simon. Really appreciate it, mate.
No, all the best, Jerry. I'll see you next week.